For those of you who aren't familiar with the CRMC, the Coastal Resources Management Council, it's a state agency that is charged with the management of the state's coastal resources. We're kind of unique in the nation. There are several other programs that are similar to us, such as the California Coastal Commission, but we are a direct permitting agency, which means that we have direct control over the planning activities that we engage in through our permits. And we have both upland and in-water jurisdiction. So it enables us to do things that some other states could only hope to do. What I'm saying to you is essentially that we probably have the most sophisticated program, if not the most sophisticated program for coastal hazards in the United States based on our approach. And I'll give you some examples here. One of the things that we have is we were one of the first states to adopt a climate change policy as part of our coastal program, which sort of forms a lens at which we look at everything from habitat restoration to new planning activities. We're constantly keeping in the back of our mind what the impacts of climate change are going to do to those activities. We also have, as you've seen here, erosion setbacks that are based on the latest science in terms of our erosions analysis of the shoreline, and we're about to update those. Last time we updated them was about 10 years ago. We also have, for instance, a ban on new development within our barriers in undeveloped and moderately developed areas. In Rhode Island, we've actually classified our barrier systems that we've been hearing about today into developed, undeveloped, and moderately developed. The moderately developed and undeveloped constitute 82% of our barriers, and we do not allow any new residential or commercial development in those areas. We're trying to keep those landforms, which we heard are very transitory in their movement, free of these structures so that they can continue to respond. We also have a ban on structural shoreline protection, which allows us to keep what very limited sediment we have within the system, hopefully within the system itself. Rhode Island is a sediment-starved state. We don't have a lot of sediment on our South Shore to play with. Sometimes it feels like we're virtually managing every grain of sand that we have, trying to keep it in the system. If you put seawalls or revetments, those type of structures in, you lock the sediment that's in behind that up from eventually going into the system. And that's what a lot of our sediment supply to the system comes from. As you've seen, we're losing a lot of sediment in our system already through a number of paths that it takes either along the shore, moving in storm surge behind the shore, or being lost through erosion out into the near shore environment. So it's important to us to manage that sediment very, very carefully. We are also have very stringent protection for dunes. Dunes are a storm protective device for us. We call them device, but they're a natural system. And they're meant to be sacrificial landforms. So they're meant to essentially erode during a storm event and then help abate the storm impacts during that erosion and then come back into the system over time. So we want to protect those dunes and keep them in that state so they can freely move to act to do those. So those are some of the things that we already have in place that are far above what any other state or municipality in many cases has in place to try to deal with coastal hazards. And by climate change, we're focusing a lot on the coastal hazards associated issues that we already heard today with storms, because storms generate the erosion that we tend to see. The other thing that we are engaged in as a result of the Matunic discussion that occurred, and Matunic is just, as I've said many times, is the tip of the iceberg for Rhode Island. We're seeing a lot of little areas pop up that are starting out as problems now that will become more severe and significant as we go along. Matunic is one of those. If we look at Corn Neck Road on Block Island, it is eroding and threatening to break through, and when it does, it will cut the island in half. We're looking at Musquamacut that has frequent overwash events, flooding in that area during just normal rain events right now where they have to close the road off. And the town wants to try to elevate the road. And we've been working with the town to look at those options. But one of the problems you're going to have to deal with is we're having an interface of two major issues here, water quality and coastal processes. Stormwater in these low-lying areas, you can't push it uphill. It won't go anywhere. So trying to deal with stormwater as we start to improve infrastructure to try to keep it in place is going to become a major issue. If we look at Misquamicut, they've got no place to push the stormwater, and stormwater right now is threatening to potentially close part of the pond off due to water quality concerns. So there are a confluence of issues that are coming together. The good news, bad news is, as I said, we're probably one of the more sophisticated programs. The bad news is that we're still in deep doo-doo based on all of this, trying to deal with these issues. What we find is you hear words like adaptation. Nobody wants to adapt. I can tell you that now. Even when you have people and you say, well, they'll make smart decisions based on what you tell them or give the information. I've had people in my office where I have told them, buying property in the Matunic area, that they may lose that structure that winter, and they are not allowed to put structural shoreline protection in. They say they understand, they won't ask for it, you give them a permit, they are out the door, and within a year back in your office screaming for structural shoreline protection. After you've had a conversation with them, telling them what the threats and the problems are with it, they do not want to adapt, they do not want to move, and they think they can fight this at least till the next big storm comes along and takes them out. So these are issues that we're dealing with, I think, along our shoreline. We are facing a legal battle that is going to increasingly grow as we start to see more erosive events and more of these issues. And we're going to see an expense on the public side that is just astronomical. If you look at Massachusetts, conducted a study a little while ago, looking at public infrastructure that's in place already and trying to maintain that. And maintaining that in the face of what we're seeing in terms of sea level rise and erosion is in the billions of dollars. Now we're talking about investing more money into some of these areas on a battle that we can't win. And it's just a question of when we're going to wake up and start to look at other approaches such as road relocations and those types of situations that have longer term solutions, have more of a hope of actually dealing with this in an adaptive fashion than trying to draw the line in the sand, which we're currently doing, and trying to hold in place. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't just totally retreat around the shoreline. That's not practical either. There are certain areas where we are going to hold the line and try to hold it. But we have to be strategic about that because we can't afford to do that both ecologically and financially around our shoreline.